Thank you for joining me today. I hope this story gives you a quiet moment to relax after a long, busy day. In the lower rings of a vast space station, Darren Holt is only looking for a part to fix an oxygen system. But when he hears a weak voice coming from a salvage cage, he realizes the thing being sold is not broken equipment. She is alive, and saving her may force him to stand against an entire noble house. Now, let's begin. At low ring 12, nobody looked up unless something was falling. Burned panels dropped from the upper docks. Dead service drones scraped the rail cages. Whole sections of luxury hull came down wrapped in warning tape. The people below had learned to read the city by sound. A clean chime meant a noble shuttle was passing above. A hard metallic scream meant wreckage was coming loose. A long groan in the heat pipes meant the station was about to make life harder for everyone who could not afford a better floor. Darren Holt heard the groan before the lights flickered. He stood in Holtyard, beneath the rib cage of an old rescue ship. His shoulder was deep inside a cracked oxygen pump when the pipe above him shuddered. He stopped turning the wrench and listened. One beat. Two. Then the groan faded into the walls. "Filter will hold another week," he said. Mara Gent, the gray-haired dock mechanic beside him, gave the pump a doubtful look. "You said that last week." Then I was right. People argued with Darren about prices and old parts. They did not argue with him about machines under stress. Before Holtyard became a scrap lot, he had been a combat recovery engineer, the kind of man who opened burning ships after battles and pulled the living out of metal that still remembered being hit. The problem was that one more week was not enough. The lower rings shared oxygen scrubber needed a clean core, not another patch. Darren had saved for 6 months to buy one from the underrail market. It was not enough for a new core, but it would buy an ugly one, and ugly still worked if a patient hand knew where to cut. He wiped oil from his fingers and looked across Holtyard. The yard sat between two old magnetic rails and a wall of heat vents that breathed like tired animals. People came here when heaters died, suits leaked, or a door needed to open fast. Darren had one rule written on a steel plate near the entrance. Nothing alive gets stripped. He locked the pump, took his coat from the hook, and headed for the market below the heat line. He planned to buy one filter core, come back, and spend the night making it fit. That was before he heard the voice in the cage. The underrail market was built in the hollow space between old cargo tracks. Vendors sold blacklisted batteries, false permits, cracked ship glass, and things that still had blood in their seams. Darren kept his face blank and his hands visible. He had no badge here. He also had no interest in pretending otherwise. Rennick Vale saw him first. Rennick was a thin man with silver teeth and gloves too clean for his trade. He smiled like a knife being polished. "Holt, looking for charity parts again." "Filter core," Darren said. "Good ones cost. Then show me a bad one." Rennick laughed and let him pass stacks of engine guts and broken cargo drones. Darren was checking the third core when something struck metal behind him. It was not a tool. It was not a falling pipe. It was a boot against the cage. Then a voice answered. "Device remains serviceable." The words were soft, flat, and wrong. Not because they were unclear, but because no living person should have to say them like that. Darren turned. A biological transport cage sat beside a pile of coolant tanks. It was half covered with a tarp and marked for tissue salvage. Inside, a young alien woman sat with her knees close to her chest. Her skin held a pale silver tint under the market lights. Fine metallic lines ran under her wrists and up the sides of her neck. They were too delicate to be armor and too precise to be natural. Her dark hair had been cut unevenly where access ports had been forced open at the base of her skull. One eye glowed faint blue, then dimmed, then glowed again. Rennick followed his gaze. "Don't bother. Biomechanical error unit. Nervous tissue still good, but the frame stutters." A butcher on level 9 already bid. Darren walked toward the cage. The woman did not look at him. Her eyes stayed fixed on the floor. A black collar ring cut into the skin above her collarbone. Around her wrist, someone had burned away an identification mark that should have proved she was a citizen. Rennick tapped the cage with his boot. "See? Still reacts." The woman flinched. Her hands clenched, but she did not raise them to protect herself. Device remains serviceable, she repeated. Darren's jaw tightened. What is her name? He asked. Rennick shrugged. Unit 7. That is not a name. It is what the scanner says. Darren crouched in front of the cage, careful not to reach through the bars. Can you hear me? The woman blinked slowly, as if the question had to travel through damage before it became sound. Awaiting owner command, she said. Rennick smiled wider. Useful enough for someone with odd taste. Not useful enough for me to keep. Darren stood. How much? Rennick named a number higher than the filter core and lower than a life should have been. Darren threw the money pouch onto the table. Rennick waited, and his smile faded when he realized Darren was serious. The butcher pays more, Rennick said. You set a price. I changed it. Darren looked at the men by the door. 2 had shock rods. 1 had a pistol. 1 was pretending not to hold a knife. Darren had been in worse rooms. No, Darren said. You sold her. Rennick's silver teeth flashed. I sold nothing yet. The lights went out before his men moved. Darren had cut the market side power with a wrench hidden in his sleeve. In the dark, people shouted. A magnetic lift roared awake, and a rusted section of shuttle frame slammed down between the cage and the guards. Darren moved into the noise. He hit the first guard with the wrench handle. He took the shock rod before it fell, drove his shoulder into the second man's ribs, and kicked a coolant tank into the shooter's knees. Then he opened the cage lock with Rennick's own bypass tag. The alien woman did not move. Darren kept his voice low. I'm getting you out. Transfer command not confirmed. I'm not commanding you. That confused her more than the gunshot. Darren pulled his coat off and wrapped it around her shoulders. She was lighter than she should have been when he helped her stand. Her legs almost folded, and he caught her with one arm. He guided her through the service gap behind the market stalls. Rennick screamed after him. Holt, you just bought a noble problem. Darren did not look back. Then Bill the Noble. By the time they reached Holtyard, the lower ring had gone quiet in the way it did before trouble became official. Darren brought her into the old rescue ship that served as his workshop and home. He set her on a repair cot, cut the outer lock from her collar, and placed the broken ring on the table where she could see it. She stared at it, then looked at him for the first time. New owner, she said. Where should this unit stand? Darren pushed a chair away from the table with his boot. There is no new owner. There is a door if you want to leave. There is a chair if you want to sit. Her gaze moved to the door, then to the chair. She moved toward neither. What task is required? First task is breathing. The old scanner on Darren's bench chimed before she could answer. Its screen filled with a crest he had not seen in years. A black sun over a white blade. How's Carth? Darren looked from the crest to the woman on the cot. Whatever she was, she had once belonged to people powerful enough to bury whole neighborhoods onto paperwork. And now, those people might know she was alive. Darren spent the next hour learning how badly someone had hurt her. Her body was not simply damaged. It had been trained to fight itself. Some systems locked her nerves when she resisted. Some forced her posture into obedience. One old compliance trigger near her hearing center made certain voices feel like law. When she fought those voices, the trigger answered with pain. Worst of all, her citizen tag had been burned out so cleanly that station scanners would read the absence as proof. Someone had not just erased her records. They had made her body agree with the lie. He worked slowly, hands steady over the diagnostic frame. There's a misaligned nerve line in your shoulder, he said. I can ease it. It will hurt for a few seconds. You can. Tell me to stop. She stared at the ceiling. If pain increases service value, pain is acceptable. Darren turned the tool off. The silence that followed seemed to frighten her more than the machine. Error, she asked. No. Instruction unclear. I'm not fixing you to sell you. Her eyes shifted toward him. I'm trying to make it hurt less, he said. That sentence did not fit anywhere inside her. He saw her trying to place it beside ownership, maintenance, cost, and use. It belonged to none of those. Mara Gent brought soup in a dented pot and stopped when she saw the alien woman on the cot. Darren gave her one look. Mara understood enough not to ask questions. Another stray machine? Mara asked lightly. Darren's face hardened. Mara corrected herself at once. Another person in trouble. The woman's eyes flicked toward Mara, then down. Darren set a bowl on the table. Then another. Then he placed a cup of water within reach of the cot. The woman looked at the water, but did not touch it. You can drink, Darren said. Permission remains active after task failure. There is no task. He drank from his own cup first. After a long minute, she lifted hers with both hands, like someone afraid the water might be taken back. That night, Darren put a new gray blanket at the end of the cot. When he checked later, she had folded it into a perfect square and placed it beside her feet. You cold? He asked. Blanket preserved. It is not a museum piece. New materials should be issued to higher performing units. Darren took an old torn blanket from a hook and threw it over his own shoulders. Fina, I will use the bad one. You use the good one when you are ready. She watched him for a long time after that. The next morning, he tried again with the shoulder nerve. I need to move this line back into place. If it is too much, say stop. Stop means failure. Not here. The tool touched the port below her shoulder. Her fingers dug into the cot. Her glowing eye flickered, then dimmed. She made no sound. Darren paused. Lita. He had found the name in a damaged fragment near her burn tag. It was not enough for a full record. It was enough to refuse Unit 7. Her lips parted. That name is not certified. It is still yours. The nerve line shifted. Pain crossed her face before she could hide it. Darren said, say it if you need to. She shook her head once, small and desperate. He waited. At last, in a voice thin as wire, she whispered, stop. Darren removed the tool immediately and stepped back. The shock in her face hurt more to watch than the wound. No punishment came. No correction came. No cold voice marked her as defective. You did it right, Darren said. Her eyes filled with a kind of fear he knew too well. It was the fear of a door opening where there had only ever been a wall. Stop is right, she asked. Here it is. That night, while she slept under the new gray blanket for the first time, a hidden pulse left the burn tag in her wrist and climbed through the station grid. Far above low ring 12, Lady Mara Carth read the alert in a room made of white glass. The message said Unit 7 was active. Lady Carth did not smile. Do not recover her yet, she told the man beside her. Erase her before she remembers. They arrived with clean boots the next morning. For station guards stood at the gate of Holtyard, their uniforms bright against the soot. With them came Soren, legal advocate to House Carth. He was a narrow man with a gentle voice and dead eyes. Darren met them under the steel sign. Nothing alive gets stripped. Soren looked up at it. Sentimental. Practical, Darren said. We are here for House Carth property. Darren did not move. No property here matches that claim. Soren opened a thin display. Lyra's image appeared beside old maintenance records, service tags, combat permissions, and the words Battle Companion Unit 7. Behind Darren, inside the workshop, Lyra heard the phrase. Her body froze. Darren heard the cot creak. He did not turn, because he would not give Soren the pleasure of seeing concern on his face. She has no independent citizenship record, Soren said. Her owner house reported her lost after a battlefield transfer. Under Veristation law, she must be returned. She was in a tissue cage. Improper resale does not change original ownership. She speaks. So do broken door systems when wired badly. Darren wiped grease from his hands. Human Combat Recovery Law, Article 12. Any conscious life form recovered from immediate harm has the right to identity verification before transfer. Soren's smile did not change, but his eyes sharpened. You are invoking human rescue law on Veristation. Station accepted human salvage treaties after the border wars. That law was meant for soldiers. It says conscious life form. Soren looked past him toward the workshop. Can she prove consciousness under station testing? Darren knew the trap. The test would ask for a full name, birth record, sponsor, origin registry, and memory continuity. Lyra had none of those in usable form because people like Soren had helped remove them. Schedule the hearing, Darren said. Soren closed the display. You are making a mistake for a damaged thing. Darren stepped closer. Not enough to threaten. Enough for Soren to understand that his clean boots did not make him safer here. Call her that again in my yard, and you can walk back to the upper lifts barefoot. For the first time, Soren's smile faded. After they left, Darren found Lyra standing beside the cot. Her arms were straight at her sides, and her eyes were lowered. Order pending, she whispered. No order. Owner voice recognized. Not anymore. Her lips trembled. If I had a name, why can they take it? That question changed everything. Darren could have told her to rest. Instead, he placed the diagnostic frame between them. There may be memory locks, he said. They're holding parts of your past behind pain. I can open them one at a time. Only if you want. Lyra looked at the door, the chair she had begun to use, and the blanket folded less perfectly now. I want to know what they stole. The first memory nearly broke her. A white hall, high windows, alien nobles in silver robes. A line of women like her, each with metal under the skin and blank collars at the throat. Then a young noble voice said, Lyra Voss, stay behind me. Then came fire. Darren watched her hands claw at the cot and forced himself not to grab her. He kept one hand near, open, where she could choose. She did not take it. Not yet. There were others, she said. They called us companions. Then witnesses. Then assets. Then waste. The name came last. Lyra Voss, she whispered. The lock under her wrist flared blue. Her body convulsed. She slid from the cot, and Darren caught her before her head hit the floor. Device remains serviceable, she gasped. Device remains serviceable. Darren held her steady, but not tight. Lyra, he said. Lyra Voss. You're in Holtyard. No one here owns you. Her breathing fought the old code. Slowly, the blue light faded. When she could sit again, the diagnostic frame showed a hidden archive behind the pane lock. It was not just memory. It was stored evidence, locked inside her because House Carth never expected her to live long enough to open it. There were names inside it. Dozens of them. Maybe more. Biomechanical companions have been transferred through battlefields, erased from citizenship, and sold as salvage. House Carth had not lost Lyra. They had buried her. And if she reached the hearing alive, she could bury them back. The storm hit low ring 3 hours before the hearing. Electromagnetic rain scratched blue across the outer plates. Lights stuttered. Comms failed in bursts. People from nearby stalls came to Holtyard because Darren's old rescue ship had shielding thick enough to trust. Darren let them in. They were adults mostly. Mechanics, loaders, 2 retired dock guards, and a quiet cook from the rail canteen. There were people the upper levels never counted. Mara Gent saw Darren check the gates twice. Trouble already inside the weather. He had moved the hidden archive to 3 separate drives, none of them labeled. He had placed old drones near the west gate, drained the fuel from the exposed tanks, and rerouted power to the magnetic crane. Lyra watched from beside the workshop door, the gray blanket around her shoulders. She no longer stood like a waiting tool, but fear still pulled at her posture. You expected attack, she said. I expected rich people to prefer no witnesses. I can fight. I know. Then why no weapon? Darren looked at her. Because I need you to know I did not bring you here to be one. Before she could answer, the west gate exploded inward. Lyra flinched at the sound, but Darren was already moving. The civilians were still near the center of the yard, too exposed if the attackers crossed the rails. Inside the rescue hall, he shouted, Mara, seal bulkhead 2. No one opens until my voice gives the phrase. What phrase? Ugly core still works. Mara gave him one sharp nod and herded the others into the rescue hall. Armored men came through the smoke. They were hired professionals, with House Carth weapon locks hidden under false plates. They were not here to argue over law. They were here to make sure Lyra never reached the hearing. Darren cut the yard lights. The first wave fired at ghosts. Old repair drones rose from scrap piles, blinking heat signatures bright enough to draw fire. Darren triggered the crane, and a magnetic hook swung low, slamming 2 armored men into a stack of cargo ribs. He moved through his own yard like he had built the dark. A pressure door snapped shut, splitting the attackers. A cracked heat tank vented steam into their sensors. Darren hit one man behind the knee, took his weapon, stripped the power cell, and threw the useless frame under a rail cart. He fought like a man who knew how many seconds a door took to close. Then a shot meant for Lyra caught him across the left side. It was not a killing shot. It was worse for that moment, a neural lock round made to freeze muscle and turn a living body into a trapped one. Darren staggered, slammed one hand against the hull, and stayed upright through will and anger. Lyra moved toward him. "South corridor," he said. "The old support beam is failing. You can hear it. Get them out." Her face tightened. "You are damaged." "Not enough." Another mercenary voice cut through the storm, amplified by a command device. "Unit 7. Return to House Carth custody. Preserve registered lives. Disable unauthorized handler." Lyra stopped. The blue light in her eye went hard and bright. Darren saw pain hit her like a chain pulled from inside. Her shoulders locked. Her hands opened and closed, fighting signals older than trust. The mercenary commander stepped through the smoke. "Comply," and the human lives. Lyra turned her head toward Darren, slow and broken. "If I go, you live." Darren lowered the stolen weapon and let it fall from his hand. The commander laughed. "Smart man." Darren ignored him. He looked only at Lyra. "You do not owe me obedience," he said. Pain shook her voice. "Order conflict." "No order. I do not know what I am without one." "Then choose before they tell you." The storm hit the hull above them. For a second, all of Holtyard flashed blue-white. Lyra saw the chair by the table, the water cup, the blanket around her shoulders. Darren stepping back when she said stop. Darren using her name before she believed in it. She lifted her hand, not toward the mercenary commander, but toward the old crane control. Her fingers shook, then they closed. The magnetic crane roared alive behind the attackers. Their armor locks screamed as the field caught them. Lyra moved through the smoke with terrifying precision. She did not kill. She did not obey. She only disarmed. She twisted a weapon from one man's grip, cut a command device from another's wrist, and opened the south corridor bulkhead before the support beam collapsed. The civilians inside the rescue hull had a path out because she chose to give them one. When the commander raised a neural pistol at Darren, Lyra stepped between them. Her whole body jolted as the old House Carth code punished her. She stayed standing. "I'm not your unit," she said. Darren reached the commander first. One hard strike to the wrist, one to the jaw. Then the man was down, and the storm swallowed the last of his orders. Afterward, the yard smelled of burned wires and rain leaking through hot metal. Darren finally sank to one knee. Lyra caught him. He tried to wave her off and failed. She dragged him into the workshop with more strength than her thin frame should have held. Her hands hovered over the wound, uncertain. "I do not know how to repair humans." Darren gave a strained breath that almost became a laugh. "Pressure first." She grabbed the gray blanket from her shoulders and pressed it to his side. "The blanket is damaged," she said, panic rising. "It is doing its job." "You said things do not need to be useful." "I said people do not." She pressed harder. "Then stay a person." He looked up at her, and despite the pain, his eyes softened. "I'm trying." By morning, edited footage from Holtyard was playing across Vare Station. House Carth claimed Darren had armed a defective battle unit and endangered civilians. Lady Mara Carth appeared in white glass light, calm and sorrowful, asking only for public safety. The hearing was moved to Civic Hall. If Lyra lost, she would not go back to a cage. She would be wiped clean. Civic Hall smelled nothing like low ring 12. No oil, no steam, no metal heated past safety limits. The air was filtered, perfumed, and cold enough to remind the poor they did not belong there. Darren walked in with a bandage under his jacket and Lyra at his side. She wore simple clothes Mara Gent had altered for her. The gray blanket was gone, ruined by blood and smoke. But a small square of it had been cleaned and folded into her pocket. Darren had not given it to her. She had kept it herself. Soren Mears stood before the council bench with spotless hands. Lady Mara Carth sat behind him in pale robes, beautiful in the way knives were beautiful when displayed under glass. The council listened to House Carth first. Soren showed ownership codes, maintenance logs, transfer documents, and battlefield permissions. Each record was meant to do the same thing. It was meant to make Lyra sound like equipment that had gone missing. He called her a unit so many times that Darren felt the word become a bruise. Her speech patterns are adaptive mimicry, Soren said. Her emotional responses were shaped by unauthorized human handling. Mr. Holt has mistaken attachment for personhood. Darren kept still. When his turn came, he did not make a grand speech. He placed Renick Vale's market records on the display. He placed the burned citizen tag scans beside them, showing where proof of Lyra's old citizenship had been cut out of her body. He played the attack footage from Holtyard before House Carth's edits. He brought Mara Gent and 3 others from Low Ring 12 to testify that Lyra had led them out of a collapsing corridor when she could have escaped alone. Then he loaded the memory archive Lyra had chosen to open. Names filled the wall. Mirasol, Vescale, Oratane, Miravas, dozens more. Transfer codes, sale routes, reclassification orders. Each one marked as salvage after serving House Carth. For the first time, Lady Carth's perfect stillness cracked. Zolan recovered fast. Memory fragments from a damaged unit cannot be treated as legal testimony. Then treat the attack on my yard as physical evidence, Darren said. Treat the erased citizen marks as forensic evidence. Treat the market sale as trafficking evidence. Treat the names as missing persons until you prove they were never people. A counselor leaned forward. Mr. Holt, on what authority do you declare Lyra Voss a free person? That was the trap. If Darren answered wrong, he became the new owner in a kindercoat. He would become the human who spoke for her because she could not speak for herself. He would save her in a way that still placed his voice above hers. Lady Carth knew it. Her mouth curved slightly. Darren turned to Lyra. She was pale. Her right hand trembled near the pocket that held the scrap of gray blanket. He wanted to shield her from the room. Every instinct in him moved that way. Hold the door. Take the hit. Keep her safe. But he had not brought her this far to stand in front of her now. Darren stepped back half a pace. I do not declare it, he said. I kept the door open long enough for her to walk through. The room went quiet. Every eye moved to Lyra. The old codes inside her knew this kind of room. High ceilings, clean floors, people above her deciding what she was allowed to be. Pain began under her wrist, bright and familiar, ordering silence. She looked at Lady Carth, then at Sorenmere, then at Darren, who stood near enough to catch her if she fell and far enough not to push her forward. Lyra took one breath. My name is Lyra Voss. Her voice shook. A council recorder chimed, accepting the statement. I know pain. I know fear. I remember being named, and I remember being erased. I remember others like me. She steadied herself. We were told service made us valuable. We were told obedience made us safe. We were told silence made us survive. The pain lock flared. Her knees bent. Darren did not move unless she asked. Lyra si tregt in it. I choose to speak. I choose to stay. I choose to testify. I'm not a device. I'm not property. I am not the only one House Carth erased. The memory archive opened its final layer at the sound of her chosen name. More names filled the wall. It was not dozens. It was hundreds. The chamber broke into noise. Counselors called for verification. Guards moved toward House Carth. Soren shouted objections. Lady Carth rose, her face no longer smooth. She looked at Lyra as if the thing she had thrown away had become a mirror. You do not understand what you are, Lady Carth said. Lyra looked at Darren once. Then she answered for herself. I am someone you failed to finish erasing. That was the sentence that traveled through Vera Station before the day ended. The council did not fix the galaxy in one hearing. Darren had lived too long to believe in clean endings handed down by clean rooms. But they granted Lyra temporary citizenship under independent protection. They suspended House Carth's recovery rights, which meant the house could no longer use old ownership claims to drag her back. They held Renick Vale as a witness, and open investigation routes along every transfer code in the archive. For the first time in years, House Carth lost the legal right to call Lyra a unit. When Darren and Lyra returned to Holtyard, part of the west gate was gone. The crane arm hung crooked. 3 drone shells were melted. Mara Gent had painted a new line beneath the old sign. Nothing alive gets stripped. No one gets named by their owners. Darren stared at it. That grammar is terrible. Mara handed him a cup of soup. Fix it after you stop bleeding through your shirt. Inside the rescue hull, Lyra stood by the table. The chair was where she had left it, near the wall, but no longer pressed into the corner. She pulled out herself and sat down. Not on the edge. Not waiting to be corrected. She sat as if the act still frightened her, but not enough to stop her. Darren placed a bowl in front of her, then sat across from her with his own. For a while, neither of them spoke. The yard groaned around them. Rain ticked through a leak into a metal pan. Outside, the damaged crane gave a sad mechanical click, still trying to work. Lyra reached into her pocket and took out the small square of gray blanket. It was stained even after washing. She laid it beside her bowl. This was serviceable, she said. Darren looked at it, then at her. It still is. She considered that. Not as a blanket. No, as proof. He nodded slowly. If you want. Lyra touched the cloth with one finger. It proves someone stopped when I said stop. It proves I sat in a chair. It proves I chose. Darren's throat tightened, but he kept his voice steady. Then keep it. She looked toward the open workshop door, out at the rows of broken machines and burned rails. There are more like me. Yes. Some may still think they are devices. Probably. Lyra picked up the spoon. Her hand still shook, but she did not put it down. I want to learn how to find them. Darren leaned back, tired enough to sleep for a year. He was also proud enough that the pain in his side seemed smaller. We will start with the names, he said. Then routes. Then people who know how to hide from nobles. That sounds difficult. It will be dangerous. Very. She looked at him across the table. You will still help? Yes. Lyra nodded, as if that one word had weight. Then she took her first full spoonful of soup without asking permission. Outside, low ring 12 kept groaning under the city above it. Things still fell. Pipes still failed. The rich still threw away what they did not want to see. But in Holtyard, a woman once sold as broken sat at a table with her own name, her own choice, and a list of others waiting to be found. Darren watched her eat, then looked at the damaged crane through the workshop window. After breakfast, he said, "We fixed the west gate." Lyra glanced at him. "Is that an order?" Darren shook his head. "No, it is a plan." For the first time since he had met her, Lyra smiled before she looked away. Then after breakfast, she said, "I choose to help." In the end, Darren Holt did not save Lyra Voss by owning her, commanding her, or speaking over her. He saved her by standing beside her long enough for her to remember her own name. Sometimes, that is the greatest kind of rescue. Not pulling someone into your world, but giving them enough safety, enough patience, and enough faith to step back into their own. Lyra was called broken. She was called property. She was called a weapon, a unit, a mistake waiting to be erased. But when the moment came, she stood before the people who had taken everything from her and said the one truth they could no longer bury. She was not a thing. She was alive, and she was free. If this story moved you, please give the video a like, subscribe to the channel, and share it with someone who enjoys emotional sci-fi stories about courage, loyalty, and the quiet power of being seen as human. Your support helps this channel continue bringing these stories to life. Thank you for listening, and I hope to see you in the next journey among the stars.